Weladiesthree, and today we are doing the Jurassic Park book tag because we figure everyone's starting to go on summer vacations and you just want to keep in mind to avoid those mysterious islands.
Yeah.
Never know what you might end up in. So, we saw this first on RichardReads, and this tag was created by Hannah and the Tiny Book Dragon, so please check out their channels. We'll link them down below. We're really excited about this. Jurassic Park was one of the first books we read as a group. Was it the first one, or did we read The Martian first?
No, it was the first one. I was not living locally at the time, and so I was reading Jurassic Park on my own and had been talking to Chelsea on the phone, and she was like, oh, hey, I want to read that. And then she talked to Lauren, and Lauren was like, oh, hey, I want to read that. So that's literally what started the evolution of the book challenge.
Yep, it was.
Which we'll also link the book challenge below if you want to check that out.
Yes. Yeah, so we wanted to first kind of just do a brief discussion of the book versus the movie. So we've all seen the book, we've all read the book, and we've all seen the movie.
We've all seen the book and we've all read the movie.
Yep.
Yes.
So
Technically, it could be possible if we read the script.
I mean,
right, because we have access to Hollywood scripts.
Hey, it could be available online.
technically that's what the book was.
No, the book was not a movie adaptation, and it wasn't just a straight script.
No, but if you think about how the movie kind of takes from the book, you kind of read the movie.
Anyway, which one did you guys think was better?
Movie.
I like them both. I would say probably one of the few movie adaptations of a book that I don't have an issue with either of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I do mean very few, because there's only a couple of ones, like Howl's Moving Castle. I really like the book and I like the movie.
But I feel like the Jurassic Park movie did a much better job of sticking true to the book.
Yes.
Than like Howl's Moving Castle. The
I would
book and
agree.
the movie are practically two different separate things.
Oh yeah, I would completely agree
Yeah.
with that. I think with Howl's Moving Castle, I've got more of like a appreciation for the book and the movie because I see them kind of separate, kind of like Princess Bride. The book and the movie
Yes.
are different in a lot of ways, but I appreciate them both separately. So I would say it's probably the same thing with Jurassic Park.
I definitely liked the character interactions in the movie better than the book. I could relate more to the characters. I felt like they were not better developed, because the book did pretty good developing them as characters, but more emotionally relatable in the movie.
Yeah, I think you do develop more emotional attachment to the characters in the movie, but I did prefer the book. The book brought up a lot of points that I thought anytime I watched the movie, and I was really glad to see that someone agreed with them.
Chelsea has some weird belief that Ian Malcolm is a likable character. I don't understand
He's
this.
the only one who speaks sense.
He irritated the crap out of me in the book and the movie.
He speaks sense.
No,
Yes.
no, I don't like it. He reminds me too much of academia.
Anyway, and the final thing we want to talk about here is, would you read another Michael Crichton book?
I actually have bought several of his, including Lost World and The Sphere and Next, and I've bought several of his books. I haven't gotten around to reading any of them yet, but they're, I guess, on the to-be-read list.
Lauren?
I would read another one. I enjoyed it well enough. I'd go for a second round.
And I definitely have. I picked up Timeline. It was one of Lindsay Ray's favorite books back when she used to be a booktuber, so it's always intrigued me, and I enjoyed it as well. So I'm really would definitely read more of him. They're really good for just short vacation reads. Like, they're exciting, they're not too stressful though, and they're not really highbrow language that you have to think about and decipher. Like, they're straightforward, adventure-y fun.
I'm sorry, you said they're not too stressful?
Well, they're not stressful like, oh my god, how am I ever going to get through this book? They are stressful and like, oh my god, are the characters ever going to survive? But that's the good kind of stress.
But that's still stress.
Whatever, they're good summer reads. Anyway, let's get on to the Jurassic Park tag. So the first question in this list is, what is your favorite dinosaur?
I'll start then.
Yes.
Mine would be Triceratops with a Brontosaurus as a close second. Thank you, Land Before Time.
Yes, Land Before Time.
We all grew up with that.
Yes. I would probably say an ankylosaur, I'm not exactly sure the pronunciation. or any of the duckbills, which I also have to do a handoff to, Land Before Time, which is kind of funny because Ducky was also a nickname of mine. So,
Yep. Mine is the Dilophosaurus. I don't really know how to pronounce that, but they're the little lizard guys. In Jurassic Park, they're depicted to have frills and spit. But that is up to
Artistic license.
yeah, it's not necessarily truly what they had, but I really like them, and my cat looks like them when he wears his e-collar and hisses. So I'm rather fond of them. And then I also really like pterodactyls because I like the fact that they can fly.
Pterodactyls are awesome.
Yep.
I actually had some kids that I work with got into an intense debate yesterday about whether they were called pterodactyls or pteranodons.
Your kids are weird.
how did that get brought up?
I have no idea. It might have been one of them saw Jurassic Park.
Jurassic World, yeah, because that one came out recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is true.
Okay, question 2.
Okay, question 2. What is the name of a book character that you think would survive Jurassic Park? And this is based off of the character of Alan Grant. So,
I went with, which this one I think is kind of obvious, I guess, with my recent reads, but I went with Lady Trent from Natural History of Dragons, because I feel like, I mean, the woman already is studying dragons, which are basically like fire-breathing dinosaurs, so my assumption is she could probably handle Jurassic Park fine, because she handles dragons fine. So, that's who I went with.
fair enough. I went with Dane from the Wild Magic series because she can communicate with all animals. And I feel like that should apply to dinosaurs. Also, she wrangled the dead bones of dinosaurs rather well in the 3rd book. So I think she'd be able to survive just because, if nothing else, she could communicate with them and be able to avoid the really dangerous ones and make friends with the more peaceful ones.
I went with Eugenides from Megan Raylan Turner's Thief series because he's very intelligent. He makes good decisions and he plans a long way out. Like, he's very cunning. So I feel like if he did happen to get stuck there, he would have a plan and he would put it into action and have no issues at all.
Fair enough. Okay, 3rd question. Ellie Sattler, name a character who is willing to risk their lives to save others. And so I'll go first with this one. And I chose Paxnarian from the Deeds of Paxnarian.
I did too.
Because she proves in the last book, if nowhere else, that she is definitely willing to put her life at risk and suffer and die for people that she wants to save or causes that she believes in. So
yes, she's very much a typical paladin. If you're familiar with D&D at all, very lawful good, doing the right thing even when it's very difficult to do, and very self-sacrificial.
As the odd woman out. At first I said Aslan, but I feel like that's kind of a gimme. And so the second option that I went with was Izzy from Silver on the Road, because that's kind of the whole theme of that book, is her sort of discovery of herself and moving into that role. So.
yeah, awesome. Okay, the next character, Ian Malcolm, my personal favorite. A book in which you could predict the ending. Lauren.
Dealing with Dragons. I read it for one of our challenges a little bit ago, and it's lighthearted and it's fun, but the ending was very predictable. There was lots of foreshadowing, and it was just fun.
I went with the Ryria Chronicles. I don't really know
You spoiled the ending, I'll kill you.
what the actual...
Still haven't
Wow.
read the last book.
That escalated quickly. But the first... What do you mean you haven't read the last book? I'm talking about the trilogy.
Oh, I'm absolutely sure. Yeah, I never finished it.
Anyway, no, I had the ending of that book pegged, I want to say, from halfway through the very first. So,
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder if I know what's going to happen. I have some suspicions myself.
what about you?
Any contemporary book ever. Whenever I try to read contemporary, I always get about halfway through, or let's be honest, about 5 pages in, and I'm, this is the person that committed the crime, this is the person that is going to be the love interest, like, totally pegged. Ending pegged. By the time I get to the end, and I'm disappointed because I know it was coming. So Anna and the French Kiss is a great example of this. But yeah, so that's why I tend to avoid contemporary reads. So yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay. Dennis Nedry. A character is willing to put others in danger for their own benefit.
I can never do things halfway, so I have 3.
Good. Got it. Okay, you say one, and then we'll say our other 2, and then you can do your backups. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as just sort of a traditional villain, I went with Lord Flavic from it's a Sherwood Smith series, Crown Duel.
Although I don't think he actually shows up till Court Duel.
I got the
You have the
duology that was
duology,
combined.
so it's all one book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Lauren?
I didn't actually come up with one for this one.
What?
Can I do my second one then?
Yes.
No, I can do one, and then you can do
Lauren
two.
didn't come up with one, so I'm just taking the one that Lauren didn't come up
No,
with.
it's true. It's just I don't like reading books that feature characters that are so selfish they will let other people come to harm.
That's
I
the
got one,
heart
and
of
you
every
did-
bad guy.
You did read one, actually. I can. So my second one for a good, relatively good character that fulfills this role, Kaz. He's constantly putting people in danger for his own benefit.
Kaz? Oh, Six of
From
Crows.
Six of
Fair
Crows.
enough. But
He has a purpose to all of it, but he's still doing it for his own benefit. Even in the second book, it's for his own benefit because the reason they're doing that in the first place is because of.
his
think he has
goal,
foil
his goal
inclinations.
is not for them to get hurt. Like he's not throwing them to the wind.
But that's not what the question asks. The question is, I was willing to
Put others in danger.
put others in danger, which he does that.
Okay, fair enough. In that case, he could almost use Eugenides again because he's willing to use other people to get his own way, like for his own plan. Okay, that's so sad. I like that.
Okay. I said Regal. Also, you've read from the Farseers trilogy. Regal is totally willing to throw every single person under the bus in order to protect his throne.
He's just a slime ball.
Yeah, he is really a slime ball. So, he is willing to put everyone in danger. He doesn't care. And he just was the first one that popped in mind. Third.
Oh, yes. My third, which I can't get into this too much because they haven't read it yet, but we will be, is Roland from the Dark Tower series. I just finished the first book, and while I absolutely love it and I do love the character, I would say he absolutely qualifies as someone who puts others in danger. So,
Interesting.
I'm intrigued now.
yes.
We are reading, Lauren and I will be reading Gunslinger for our June. What month is this? June book challenge. And Brenda's going to be reading the next one in the series because they are kind of dystopian post-apocalyptic.
Post-apocalyptic.
Next, Brachiosaurus, a book that took you a long time to finish.
Okay, you go ahead and start.
Okay, so this one I chose. I don't remember. The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This one just took me forever to get through. It took me forever to pick up. It just lived in my life for a really long time. I'm glad I finished it. It was better than I expected at the ending, but you just couldn't get attached to any of those characters. Or I just couldn't.
No, I agree with you.
They're really brutal.
They are. You don't really like any of them.
There's not really a likable one amongst them.
That's kind of the point of the book, though.
Yeah, exactly. It is the point of the book. So if you want grimdark fantasy, you know, Joe Abercrombie's a big name in that area, but that was definitely a book that took me just forever to finish. It's thick enough to begin with, and I would read like 5 or 10 pages at a time for about a month. So I finally got it done. So.
Across the board, anything nonfiction will always take me forever to read because there's something else that I can read faster that may be a little bit more interesting. But as an actual book that I have completed, I kind of went with the Evil Genius series by Catherine Jinks because I absolutely love the books, but they're so full of technobabble that it takes me a little while to actually read through them. And echoing off of what Chelsea says, they're thick enough as it is. So.
Yes. I actually have 2 for this one.
Well, fancy.
I know, right?
And
It's a
you're
good thing you're
mocking
going
me
at
about that.
I have one for everything. I follow the rules.
Alright, so the first one is The Wind-Up Girl by Paolo Bacigalupi or something. I don't know how you say the last name. But it's a very interesting premise and just ends up kind of dark. It took me about 8 weeks from start to finish to get through the whole thing. And normally I go through 300 pages, 400 pages a week, at least.
Yeah.
in a difficult book. Like, it'll take me about a week to go through a hard one. That one just took forever. I just couldn't get into it. It was fairly dense and an interesting world, but not anything I'd ever come across before. So if you're looking for something new, you can try The Wind-Up Girl. It's really highly rated and won multiple awards. Just not my favorite, not my cup of tea. Second one would have been Tigana by Guy Gavrilke, which is very dense, but it's wonderful. The world building is fabulous. It just took forever to get through to the end of it.
To give you guys an idea of how voracious of a reader Lauren is, I mentioned Natural History of Dragons to her as something she would be interested in, and a week later she'd read all 4 of them.
Yep.
So, yeah. Next question.
Okay. Number 7 is a T-Rex, a book you found intimidating but ended up loving. So back to Lauren.
All right. Traitor's Blade by Sebastian de Castel. Looking at the back, it seemed very much Three Musketeers, sort of classic fantasy. And then I got about 10 pages in, and it's very, very adult fantasy. And so at that point, I was kind of scared to finish the rest of it, because it's very dark, and it deals with a lot of very adult topics very early on. But just getting through to the end of it, it was totally worth it. It was a long ride, but you love the characters, you kind of feel the pain that they're going through, and you can relate to them emotionally. It's really well written, and the character interactions are just spot on. So it started out really scary, but it was totally worth it.
I went with basically anything by Neil Gaiman. These two will tell you he's probably one of my favorite authors, but he is somewhat of an intimidating author to me just because he has a very, I would say, high writing style. Like, some people, whenever they write prose, it's very cut and dry. Like, this is what's happening, this is what's going on. And his is a lot more fluid in the way that he writes, and so some of his stuff, it's not going to be as overt about exactly what's happening. So it gets kind of intimidating to me, mostly from a standpoint of actually understand what's happening with the story. But I always love his books. So.
And for me, I said Silver on the Road. We read this one as a group. It's a weird Western fantasy, and I was really hesitant going into it because I was very skeptical of the Western part. But I absolutely loved it. It is one of my favorite books that I've read the past year, and it's just stuck with me. So definitely intimidating because it's so not what I typically read. I like the fun, silly adventure, heisty novels. But it was absolutely worth it. So yeah. Number 8, a book that's fast-paced.
I'm gonna kind of go with Chelsea on this one. A lot of the contemporary written books to me are very fast-paced, especially a lot of the newer young adult books. Yes. I think whenever I was going through and trying to pick out one in particular, I was thinking about Rebel in the Sands and then Assassin's Curse. Rebel in the Sands is Alwyn Hamilton, and Assassin's Curse is Cassandra Clark Rose. Those to me are always going to be fast reads just because they're written for a younger audience, and so they're pretty quick. But if we're going for something that's more of like your standard science fiction fantasy sort of thing, Blade Runner, or Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, it's what we read for the month of May, was actually pretty fast to me as a read. So that one, yeah, kind of a surprising fast read to me.
Okay, I went with the Kate Daniel series by Ilona Andrews. This series, you just jump in 2 feet straight into Kate's world, and there's monsters, there's magic, there's gods. Like, it's just fantastically fun, and you get swept away instantly. It's got that urban fantasy excitement to it, instead of having to do the super in-depth world building that epic fantasy has to do to just create a whole new world. It bases itself off of a post-apocalyptic, don't make fun of me world, because I normally hate those books, where magic and technology are rising and falling with which one will work. But yeah, once you get sucked into them, you can't put them down. I read most of those books in a day, so yeah.
I went with Old Man's War by John Scalzi.
That's a good one.
It is a good one. It's kind of space opera. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the first first book in a series, and it's just very fast. I breezed through it. The characters are fun. The writing is very witty and clever, and it's not super plotty. It was just a fast read.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, and finally, we have number 9, which is a book that flew you to another world.
Okay, is this literally or figuratively? Like something where people are transported to another world, or one where world building just sucked you in? Because
That's how I
took it
interpret
as
it.
the second.
Yeah.
Okay, because I have an answer for both of those, just in case.
All right.
Alright, so for literally where people from our world were sucked into another world, I went with The Summer Tree by Guy Gavriel Kagan.
Okay.
Very literary, almost more literature fiction than fantasy. But I mean, people are sucked into another world, and there's magic, and it's wonderful, and it's a really well-written series. Just lots of, not really fun, because it gets pretty dark and not quite depressing, but very intense at some moments, but a really quality read. For one that just sucked me into awesome world building, I picked Killdeer by Anne B. Walsh. She's a really new author and mostly self-published right now, but all of her books just suck me in. She does really well with the world building and the characters, and I really enjoy everything I read.
This is less on the science fiction side. It's kind of fantasy, but it's, I think, traditionally considered more literature. I went with The Bees by, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Lillian Paul. It's a pretty fascinating book to me because it takes this whole world of bees, and then it puts you in the perspective to kind of go through what would be kind of a hierarchical society of actually bees themselves, but it sort of anthropomorphizes them. So for me, it was absolutely fascinating. It was one of those books that I got done with and really wished that there was like a sequel, or that there was more going on after the story had ended. So that's probably the one I would pick.
Awesome, and I went with The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. I know some of you are probably like, well, that takes place in our world, and it doesn't, but it just absolutely, I wanted to be in Virginia. I wanted to be, like, there in that world. I could feel the atmosphere around me. I was completely sucked in and absorbed by them. Quit laughing at me. So that's the one that I went with, because even though it's so similar to our world, it is different, and the atmosphere of the books just takes you away and puts you in their place, so it's fantastic. Alright, and then number 10 is tag 3 people. We don't really have anyone to tag. Most of the people that I watch have already done this video, but if you haven't and you see this, please do it. This is a lot of fun to do, and everybody loves dinos.
And feel free to comment and let us know that you've done a vid so we can watch it.
Yeah, very cool.
Alright, our Machi Koro video, we always do game videos on the last Thursday of the month. And then our book posts on our blog are every Tuesday, so keep an eye out for those. And we look forward to seeing you guys later. Bye.
Bye.